Okay. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission, the regular meeting for July 28th. It is now 4:01, and so I will call the meeting to order. We'll start off with roll call. Please identify if you are present. Mark Nelson.
Present.
Steve Corey, here. Scott Walters.
Here.
Sean Keating.
Here.
Meg Larson.
Here.
Karen Richmond. Okay. Rand Spywek.
Here.
Isabel Cow.
Here.
And Karen, we're doing roll call. So Karen Richmond. And we'll ex officio members, Rochelle Klein
Here.
and Councilwoman Liz Strader.
Here.
Quorum being present, we will go ahead and move on to item 1, which is that a new commissioner has been appointed, also a subject matter expert. I want to welcome Tom Ott to this commission. And Tom, do you want to go ahead and take a couple minutes to introduce yourself? Most people should be aware of you, but may not know your background well.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like Mr. Chair said, Tom Otti, I've got a good bit of experience in the solid waste industry. I cut my teeth in the solid waste industry starting in 2010 as a member of Republic Services. Thanks. I left Republic briefly in 2017 to take a job at an oil company in Oregon, still staying in the transportation industry. Republic was kind enough to welcome me back in 2018, I think. I can't remember the year. And then from Republic, I came to the city of Meridian, acted as a solid waste coordinator for about 2 years, and have since left the city and am now working for Ada County as the Deputy Director of Solid Waste. So if you have any trash questions, please let me know.
Well, your ability to go ahead and assist us in what's going on at the county is going to be very helpful to us. So welcome and thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any comments on the draft agenda? It's been moved that the agenda be approved as written. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Are there further comments or questions? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 23rd meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. Are there comments on the proposed minutes?
Mr. Chair, no comments, but I would move to approve the agenda, the minutes as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is community acknowledgement. And first off, Joanna's been very nice to go ahead and hand out the volunteer appreciation things. And I definitely want to pass down from the city that they very much appreciate the things that you do for the city and really appreciate you working on this commission. And for those that we haven't gotten it to, we'll figure out some way to pull that off. I also will go ahead and take this moment to just quick mention that earlier this afternoon, the county quarterly Solid Waste Advisory Commission meeting, Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting was held. And the majority of the time was spent discussing an effort the county's got for trying to extend the length of the landfill life, concrete diversion. And they're working on that hard. I'm not going to go ahead and go into detail on it, but they went ahead and mentioned similar problems to what we're seeing, that their programs for cardboard diversion or something along those lines that they would be interested in, but are having a hard time getting container for trucks at a reasonable price. And so they are waiting to be able to do that before they really institute the program. But the city of Boise mentioned that they were deep into a program of construction and debris diversion, and also are on the verge of doing an expansion of the compost operation that they've got south of Boise, but mentioned that that's to catch up with the need within Boise. I don't think that's going to develop much excess capacity yet. With that, then I will move on to the next item is program report, which I don't think we have anything on today's agenda for that. Under old business, the first item is the Community Recycling Fund update. First, I'll go ahead and say that a week or so ago, I went ahead and did stand before City Council to tell them that we had noted that there was about $40,000 worth of funds available in the recycling fund. And we thought that we were thinking that it was time to start considering whether that should be put to use, and asked them if they had any particular recommendations or desires. And they said they were pretty comfortable with us putting together some kind of a plan for using that fund. And though we should come back to them and run that through them to approve whatever plan we're thinking of. But they do look forward to our plan for the use of that money. And with that, I will go ahead and touch base with Sean. Sean has handed out a set of thoughts that he had for a possible program. So Sean, why don't you go ahead and give us anything in background to that you think we should know?
No, with the other commissioners, unfortunately, we did not get together and kind of discuss further ideas of getting businesses in Meridian to come up with their own ways of reducing their trash or recycling more. But I think we do want to get together and discuss an idea of that nature. But for the fund, I mean, that to me, that's just one way of maybe reaching out to the community and acknowledging businesses that will put forth effort in order to divert the trash to the landfill. But so far, so just the kind of an outline of what we discussed last week into to different ideas. But at the moment, again, we have not gotten together, and I was wondering this week what other ideas we would use the money for in Meridian. Anybody else came up with other creative ways?
Members of the commission, do you have any comments that you want to pass back to Sean on this?
Mr. Chair. One thing we could look into using some of the fund money for would be to create targeted outreach to businesses that could concentrate on single commodity types and explain different ways to reuse and recycle those within a business function. Using the commission to create a subcommittee to research those, looking at single-use plastics, cardboard, glass, really aluminum, really anything we were looking to pull out of the waste stream, and then encourage them to find ways to efficiently recycle that so it wouldn't add too much to their bottom line.
John,
Yeah, that,
I think you should invite Tom Oddie to be on our subcommittee.
it's an excellent idea.
Just like to apologize for we haven't been able to get together. It's been a busy summer, but we're going to make good effort, I think, to try to find the times that we're all available. As soon as we can make it work.
Then just, I think it's just a beautiful thing that we can show Meridian with, some way of funding, of giving back. So it's really awesome to be a part of this team. Have an idea of doing that.
Mr. Chairman, and commissioners, based on, and I've been working with Commissioner Keating on this kind of behind the scenes. I love this idea of, engaging businesses actively. And we have a lot of businesses in Meridian. And so one of the things I was thinking is we could maybe break it down into like waves and then get like, maybe have just at certain trash levels, have people like take the first 20 and invite all of them to participate and then get a winner out of that 20 and then invite the next 20 and kind of roll it out in waves and then take the top winners and then have them engage with each other, just because it seems daunting if we invite them all at once to participate in a contest. They're like, oh, there are hundreds of businesses in Meridian. What are the odds that I'd win? So I thought if we maybe do something smaller and roll it up, it might be easier for them to get engaged. I don't know. It was just a thought I had on the way here in the car. So, but I love the idea. Commissioner Keating, good job.
That is a brilliant idea. Thank you.
Additional comments for the subcommittee to consider?
I have
Okay.
one comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Let's meet afterwards shortly to find a good calendar day that will work for us.
Okay, if you have additional thoughts and comments that come up, go ahead and funnel them through Joanna or myself, and we can go ahead and forward them to Sean or contact Sean directly. Either way, I know they'll really appreciate the input, and we look forward to some more discussion on this next month. Moving on to the next item, item 4. This is Republic Services Service Update, actions taken to improve service. I know it's been a struggle this month too. So Rochelle, can you go ahead or turn it over to whoever to go ahead and give us an update?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think our general manager, Bob Bennett, wanted to give an update on labor. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. So actually have a pretty positive update from the last time we talked till now. We've had a lot of improvements, and one of them I've got to take my hat off to now Commissioner Oddie, because we've made a couple operational changes that have had a big impact. And one of the biggest ones, so what we're seeing, which is normal, is this time of year our volume goes up from wintertime and spring, and our trucks are being loaded with, instead of 2 loads, normally 3 loads. And we were running into a huge challenge at the end of the day, getting up to the landfill based on what time it closes and what time our transfer station closes. So what the landfill now is doing is they are open at 5 a.m. for transload trucks only, which is allowing us to have our 3rd load trucks dump at Meridian, load into trailers, and then Timber Creek is able to transload it in the morning. which is saving us a ton of time and volume, giving us plenty of hours for our drivers. They're getting done earlier. And it's just really set us up for success. In addition to that, our recycling center is also staying open a half hour later to make sure we can get in there and get that last load dump. So all of our trucks are empty, they're fueled up in the morning, and we're seeing somewhere around an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes per driver that's saving, which is kind of relieving us some of that pressure. So that's the first thing we've done. And this last couple of weeks, we've done a heck of a lot better. The second thing, and this is more of a driver and workforce discussion. I kind of took a look at a little bit of history, and really we're only 5 drivers that we've lost more this time of the year, July to July versus last year, which isn't in the big picture all that many, but our challenge is candidate flow, and we're not immune to the challenges everybody else has been having. So, we're actually upping our game on recruiting. I had an HR manager get promoted, and the one that we've hired comes out of the oil fields, construction recruiting, and also has some Department of Labor experience. And so we are going to be targeting, a new population of drivers in a couple different ways. And I would like to report more on that after we start working on that, so I could show results. But that's going to help us because our other challenges were growing. As you know, I talked a little bit about reroute work, and we're getting through all that math. But not only do we got to keep up with what we have today, but unless the growth stops, we got to be thinking a year, 2, 3 years from now to stay ahead of that. The last big one that I wanted to talk a little bit about was it came up on the county SWAC meeting today as well, is the weekend holidays. So one of the things that caused a challenge for us a couple of weeks ago is we had a 4th of July on the weekend. And a lot of people, I think, expected us to be running on the same schedule that a lot of government agencies ran, where Monday was off and we were a day late. And so we saw a big volume difference that week of 4th of July. And then the next week, the volume came in, which really put us in a hole. So we can't make that decision just for one city and unilaterally. That's something that we probably all ought to do together, whether we keep our same schedule, whether we run a delay schedule. But it's something I would like to add to future agendas, because we've got to get better at communicating that, so we don't have that big volume difference week over week like we did, especially when we have 2 weekend holidays back to back, and New Year's and Christmas. So that's coming up. So that is my update. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you, did you do anything to go ahead and kind of enhance the service side of this, as far as being able to receive calls or?
Yep, we did. So we actually added 2 seasonal call center reps. Now, one of them has started already. The other one has not yet, but that is making an impact. Another thing, and we haven't quite gotten that far yet, but I was looking at call volume year over year, and last year was kind of a weird year with COVID. A lot of stuff was still shut down at this time. But just based on the growth in the area, I still think that we've got a gap in number of customer service reps that I'm going to have to kind of go to the well and say, this is what I think we need. On average, our good reps can handle 70 to 80 calls a day and actually solve problems. And just based on the way we've grown as a percentage, we're kind of getting to that point where we have to grow too.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions or comments on the information that's been provided?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify my understanding on the holiday issue, that's the question of communicating to the public.
Yep. And what we've talked about as a team is, one, our part communicating that better. We've got it all on our website, but something I've learned in this business, you can send something out, you can email it, you can put it on a bill, you can make phone calls, you can text, and people still miss it. What we've got to do is come up with a way to minimize that. But even over and above that, a lot of people, I believe, expected us to run the same schedule as a lot of governments. And so, our week of 4th of July was really light. And one of the things we probably could have done better is we should have recognized that ahead of time and went, uh-oh, and got on top of that.
One of the services that you'd use that I really enjoy is being able to, because sometimes I've got to do some things for my parents, being able to type in a service address and having the calendar that identifies what day pickup's going to be coming for those areas. I would recommend highlighting that, being able to get to that, because every time I do it, it takes me about 8 or 9 different what ifs. And then finally I see the calendar, and a clear link to go ahead and get the calendar pop up would really be nice.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of other ideas that I think we're going to explore. We've got a few months, but Rochelle and I have talked a lot about communication and over communicating, especially as the valley's grown and people are used to different things from different places. And so I think that's a great topic as we're going into the end of this year.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah,
Bill.
Mr. Chairman, I would concur that I think there really wasn't enough information, and I do pay attention maybe more than the average homeowner, and I had no idea. I happened to be leaving my house at a certain time and the truck was coming down my street, so I turned around and went home and put my can out. But I don't know if the city can assist with that a little bit. I know we do have a pretty robust website that people use and Facebook that people use that are good. We have that Trash Talk Tom guy that everybody seems to still like. And so we have ways to make that help with that for a lot of our customers. But I agree with you. There's a lot of folks that, like myself, that thought, oh yeah, Sunday, so it's Monday, and then realized, no, it's actually Sunday was your guys' holiday. So I think if something the city certainly can help with, I'm sure we can find a way to coordinate that a little bit too.
Thank you.
Do the members have any questions on or comments on the holiday concern? If not, I think I would recommend that you work with the city on this. Obviously, I would do what's best for the citizens of Meridian, and that may be, well, but anyway, yeah, just work with the city, and we'll do what we can to help you on communication. But I think the city and the company probably are the leads on the communication.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll definitely do that because I don't want to have a repeat.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Joanna.
the city did have the information posted on 3 different media sites and sent out various forms to inform the public that the schedule was going to not change for that holiday, but unfortunately it didn't.
I mean, I know, again, similarly, the refrigerator magnet made it clear. So,
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate your communication challenge.
Mr. Chair,
Tom.
I'd just like to note that since Republic has such a large portion of the valley, that it would behoove the county, myself, to work with them and make sure that the miscommunication piece can be assisted in remedying by the county's use of PSAs. So I don't know how many people have noticed, but that little raccoon fella pops up a lot on the radio and on different television things. So it is a commitment of the county to help improve upon this and make sure that this does not happen in the future. With most respect paid to the Christmas and New Year upcoming holidays. So they will be able to, Republic and Hardin both will be able to use their resources in addition to the city resources, also county resources.
Thank you. That concludes old business. And we'll move on to the new business, our annual Republic Services rate presentation. Rochelle? Whichever works better for you as far as being able to drive a presentation or whatever else.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll probably just stay here then. Hopefully, thank you for your time today, and hopefully all of the commissioners had a time to review the files that Joanna sent out earlier last week for review. And as you know, I think many of you know, by the time we come and bring rates to SWAC, they've been vetted behind the curtain by a number of city staff at multiple levels with really good questions. So what we're bringing to you today, I assure you, has been reviewed by several different departments and lots of really smart people as we bring this forward. So with that, we do have before SWAC today a request to increase rates. And we historically have been, according to contract, able to collect 90% of the consumer price index, and it's for garbage and trash. And this year we are seeing some inflation, actually some of the greatest inflation I've seen in a while. And so the rate increase is 3.91%. Based on this standard garbage and trash, 90% of that CPI. And the biggest question, or most frequent question we get asked is, how does that look and translate? How does that translate into rates and for customers? And it's a little bit different for businesses because the CPI, it does not include disposal. So there's been no change at the Ada County landfill and disposal for this year, but it does include service and then rent. And so there are a couple different components that make up the residential rate in particular. In addition to, we break down service for recycling and service for trash, and then rent on the containers. And then we also have a standalone memo currently in place for recycling. And so when we walk through these rates for the recycling piece, when markets turned upside down, we came back to the city and said, in order to keep this program intact, here's what it will take per household. Otherwise, we'll have to make changes to the program. And the city has been good every year at reviewing what those the changes are on the recycling front. And we're still not seeing, commodities are not back like we want them to be, but they are stronger. And so with the residential rates, we're this year asking for no change in the household hazardous waste component, and no change for either for the recycling processing fee from last year. So the changes we'll see would be for the service and then the container rent. And that's in addition to residential services, that's for commercial and industrial also. And similar to last year, Republic Services has rebated to the city the alternative fuel tax credit that we get back from the federal government for running a natural gas fleet. And again, the city has chosen to roll that credit that comes back to the city for solid waste into residential rates. And so the net of all of that is for on the residential side, a 79-cent increase for the largest service level, which is a 95-gallon cart, and then 71-cent increase for the 65-gallon cart, and then a 62-cent increase for the 35-gallon cart. And again, and the one thing we did see this year, I have to add a caveat. One thing we did see this year, which has not historically been a request of ours, is for labor. So we have come to the city this year and said, we are just like everyone else experiencing a labor shortage. So this year we asked for a one-time column at this point for a memo to be drafted to say, yes, there will be an allowance for a one-time labor increase. And that is at the residential level for the largest level, it's 11 cents. And then it drops to, I think, 9 cents and then 7 cents for the smallest level. And that's just to the CPI this year did not cover at 3.91%, did not cover what we had to give employees to keep them as drivers. So we were seeing employees move to various employers in the Valley because they could make a couple dollars more and their work, frankly, is easier on them. So we were seeing people leave, and it takes a lot of training to get someone behind the wheel of a trash truck. And so we began paying for CDLs and in a training program to fill that funnel with qualified people, but it takes time to get people trained and out on the street. And to retain them, we gave people on average $2 more per hour to keep them, to make our wages somewhat competitive and keep drivers here for service. So we did ask for a one-time labor adjustment outside of the regular CPI. And again, that's for the regular, like the largest cart, 11 cents, and then 9 cents, and then 7 cents. And that was a request that we did bring forward this year. Does anyone have any questions with that? And then there are also the rates change similarly for commercial and industrial. There is a one-time adjustment request for labor, and the city has reviewed that. And so that, just so you know, everyone is aware that that request is out there this year. Does anybody have any questions?
Members of the commission, do you have comments or questions on the information that's been presented?
Mr. Chair, can we get some feedback from the city that did do those reviews?
So the city has gone through this and discussed it with Republic. We are comfortable with the 90% CPI increase that has been added. It's been added to the appropriate sections. There is some additional information with the market labor that has been added. And we are curious to see what SWAC's consideration is of that additional charge.
Mr. Chair.
Tom?
So Rochelle, I just want to make sure numbers wise, I'm getting this right. So then with our tiered system, with the CPI, 90% of the CPI at 3.91, the total increase for 95 gallon customers would only be 4.3% with that labor increase. Is that correct?
Commissioner Adi, I don't have the large file in front of me. I would have to go back. Do you have that one in front of you? I think we did break out. If you looked at the Excel file, it'll tell you what the percentage changes in that, and I can pull that up.
Mr. Chair, the percentage increase on a 95 gallon is 3.8% total.
And that could be partly because we have a VTech credit that's coming back and being applied against what would normally be the request.
Mr. Chair, Joanna, so that 3.8%, I don't have the documents for me, that's all in, including the labor adjustment and the.
Correct. Correct.
Mr. Chair. Hey. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Rochelle. So is the labor adjustment outside of our terms of our existing contract? And I guess what I would be curious is, was a contract meant to capture an increase in labor costs through the CPI? Or is this something in addition to our contract that you feel is necessary?
Thank you, Councilwoman Strader and Mr. Chairman and Councilwoman. No, this is not covered by our contract. Similar to recycling, this is outside of that. And ideally, the labor adjustment would be captured in the CPI, but we're in extraordinary times. So no, we had to give an average of $2 more per hour, and roughly it translated into a 10% increase to keep drivers and other employees too, shop employees and equipment operators and everybody, to keep them here during this mad labor scramble. We've seen an average of 10% that we've had to give employees to keep them here. So this is an extraordinary request, and we have asked that it be considered outside the contract with a memo, like a memorandum of understanding similar to the recycling processing fee. So we don't anticipate, I guess we don't have a crystal ball, but we don't anticipate making a market adjustment like this again. But we can say that it has worked. So it is the right thing to do. And this raise for drivers and employees went into effect July 1st, and it has really helped keep people here, and which translates into better service. So it keeps people driving, and we really prefer to have people come and stay and spend their whole careers with us. And we were seeing people that we thought would never leave to go to other employers for a couple dollars more per hour. And this is one way that we can, besides good benefits and other benefits, this is one way that we can come back to them and say, we do want you to stay here. And we do realize, they need more to live here, to be totally honest. And just as anecdotally, we've had drivers who've been with us forever who were able to, a lot of them live here in Meridian, and they were able to buy a house and a nice car. And, they've been with us a long time. And the younger drivers who are coming to us, they're making $19 an hour and they're hoping to someday get to buy a house or a really nice car. I mean, the cost of living has far outpaced the labor market. And so, we're in a tough position where we understand their struggles, but we also want to make sure that we are an employer that says we want them to stay and we value them. So
Mr. Chair,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
just to follow up, what percentage of the labor increase is being proposed to be passed on to the city of Meridian, and what percentage is being covered by Republic, maybe doing things differently, doing things more efficiently, reducing other costs?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I can tell you, we have, as Bob Bennett, our manager, explained earlier, we have gone to extreme measures to make sure we're controlling costs. And part of that was we even went to the landfill and said, can we bring in trash in transfer trailers before you open? Because we're spending so much time with traffic on the streets and it's slowing us down and it's really impacting costs. So we can assure you we've gone to extraordinary measures. I mean, all I can tell you is we've pressed all of our, partners as well on this, and we're all in the same boat. So everybody, rolls into the same market. So we're all doing the exact same thing. So we're not recovering. What we're asking from you is not 100% recovery of the labor adjustment we've given. I don't know if you know, Bob, what the percentage is of what. Do you know what that translates to? I'm going to have Bob come up here. We've worked a lot on this and he can probably answer that.
Mr. Chair, Commission. So to kind of answer that question, in total, we did our normal annual increase back in February, which is typically covered as part of CPI. We do give or take 2.5%. When we started this process, we actually called over 50 employers, hired an outside company that kind of works through our corporate office to make phone calls and do a true market survey to find out whether or not we were within market, not only to keep drivers, our more tenured folks, but also attract people into this industry because like a lot of mature industries like ours, we have drivers over the next 10 years that are going to be retiring. And that is a whole nother culture and crowd of folks versus people that we're having to attract into a business that, to be quite frank, it's not all that glamorous. So we did a lot of work. So our drivers got a 2.5% normal year merit increase, plus this 10%, which is the number that we got through all the research, and it's absolutely had an impact. So when we looked at it versus CPI, one of the challenges that we were facing is looking at CPI, what percentage did it say was labor in that 3.91%? And it didn't actually specifically call that out. So that made that a little bit of a challenge for us. And so, we did the math based on, the per household, and that's kind of where we came up with it. On average for our drivers, minimum of $2. Some of our more tenured drivers got $2.12. And again, it was just math, but it's absolutely made an impact. And I know everybody here knows this, but I'm getting very close with our drivers here. We've had drivers that got kicked out of their apartments because people are selling. We've got drivers that are moving further and further out. And so if we don't stay on top of that, that's going to be a problem for all of us, not just in this industry, because it's not getting any cheaper here.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. And there's a human side to all of that and all of those individual stories. And I don't want to discount that. But my question, which I'm going to push on, is if the total increased labor cost to Republic Services for the next year is $1 million, I'm speaking a number, I don't know what it is. Did you pass on 100% of that cost to the city of Meridian through this increase to households, or what amount of the increased labor cost is being passed to the city versus being absorbed by Republic? And if you want to follow up to answer it once you can calculate it, that's totally fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's grabbing his computer quickly and he can get that for you pretty fast. So that's a good question.
Mr. Chair. Well, Bob's working on that math. This kind of begs a bigger question. If we're seeing things that are falling outside the contract, for example, the recycle processing fee, then this labor increase fee, it seems to me like this almost begs the question of should we, the city and Republic look at renegotiating the agreement because there are fees and things that are falling outside of said agreement that seem to be causing issue for Republic.
Mr. Chair, I would echo that question. I wonder if Mr. Neri can weigh in at all on contract and outside the contract.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Commissioner Audi, Commissioner Larson, it's a fair question. And we had this conversation with Republic. Is that the time to do that? And obviously that's a conversation both for Republic and their management team, as well as the mayor and the city council. So it's certainly, I mean, I think the bigger, the long-term answer is, yeah, MOUs are not long-term solutions. MOUs are really Band-Aids. And again, we can Band-Aid as long as you want to Band-Aid things. Is a better long-term solution is to reevaluate all levels of service, all types of services, all types of fees and costs. Again, some of the things that have evolved over time and that these MOUs have been the interim fix are things that, again, weren't anticipated, right? When we based this original contract, recycling didn't exist to the degree that it does today, that we didn't have the robust level of services that the public is wanting to see today. Again, we're reaching this very tenuous point in the labor market here in the Valley that may not be very common in other parts of the country or other parts of the state. So I think the answer to your question is yes, this is probably another reason to have that conversation. And I think we will continue to have that conversation with Republic as well as the mayor and council over the next, probably the next 3 to 6 months on is if or when is the right time to do this. But I think the short answer is, yeah, we probably need to at least take care of the problem initially and then look at, again, how much do we want to keep doing that and what would make sense both for Republic and the city. Obviously, it's really a two-way street. So fair question. I don't think we have a final answer today, but we probably will have to have some answer within a reasonable period of time.
Mr. Chairman,
Rand.
I wasn't going to say anything. I'm fairly new on the commission and I spoke with Joanna, but since it's been brought up by three other commissioners and by our attorney, I wanted to offer a suggestion. I'm going to abstain from voting because I have no history. And it's hard to look at a rate increase request fairly when it's only based on consumer price index. We have no access to financials. I found out just through asking questions, this contract's well over 20 years old. It's not like it's a sole source, though it could be. The contract needs to be fair, as Bill said, to both the Republic and to the taxpayer. And I represent a taxpayer. I don't represent Republic. I work with them. So I had sent an email to Joanna, and I think I copied you, and I was just asking for basic information. Could I take a peek at the contract, the original bid docs, the bid that was the response to the bid by, I guess, your predecessors? And the response I got back was, well, the bid that went out many years ago, the only amendment that's taken place since then technically has been changing the name of the provider. So we're operating on a very old contract, basically. I said, when was the last time this was bid? Well, you have to give 7 years notice. I said, what? 7 years notice I don't know if we have the authority just to jump in and negotiate. I didn't ask, does Republic have to give the city 7 years notice to say, well, I think we're going to go do something else? And I don't think they will. So it's really hard for me to look at a rate increase. This may not be enough. And on the other side of the coin, it may be way too more than we should be asking the taxpayer and the resident in Meridian to pay if the bottom line at Republic is in great shape. We don't know that. We have, according to what I heard in the contract, we have no right to ask for financials to see how well off or poorly off Republic is doing. If we want them to be successful, we need to share with them and how to keep them successful. On the other side of the coin, I've never had a contract in the 41 years that operated a community college much larger than the city and larger budget, that it just looks strictly at basically an automatic or a rate increase based on consumer price index alone, not cost, not anything else. So I suggest this, if we're going to look at any other type rate increase with any other provider, it would be great for those of us, especially the newbies, to have a workshop ahead of time so we have a little history of what the contract, when it was negotiated, what was negotiated, what it looks like, and where we should go. Then it's a lot easier to evaluate a request and be supportive of one that really needs to be supported. Pass on good information to city council. Right now, I can't tell city council squat. I have no idea.
Mr. Chairman, can I just, and Dr. Spiewak, I hear what you're saying. And so just so you know, in this industry, it's very common to have rolling evergreen contracts or even 10-year contracts, which are really common because of the investment of the trucks are, $400,000 each, and the depreciation schedules and the carts. And so they're really expensive contracts to provide service. So that this is a very standard, very common type of contract. Although in most businesses, you don't see contracts of this length. It is really the industry standard for solid waste, just because of the investment and the infrastructure required to provide service at this level, versus just trash cans and taking it to the landfill. I hope that helps.
Mr. Chair,
Tom.
I'd just like to point out one more thing, that we are extremely lucky to have a community partner like Republic in our city. I've worked in a lot of cities and seen a lot of trash in other places, and Republic has, as a former employee of the city of Meridian, Republic was a godsend to work with. They were very easy. They were a fantastic partner. They like to take the initiative on a lot of what we did. So in looking at this, I just would also like to make sure we take that into consideration, is how long and how successful a partnership the city has had with Republic since the contract. I think it was 2012 that the contract changed over to Republic. So they've been a phenomenal community partner and have done great things for the city and with the city.
Commissioners, yeah, Sean.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely echo that. Working with Republic Services for 4 years now, they are incredible. They have stepped up so many times for all kinds of community service projects to everything you can think of. I can echo Tom 100%.
Yes.
Did we not review the contract several years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago? And I think it would be a good idea.
Good thought. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Bob because I think he's ready to talk about the labor costs.
Very quick, Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Strader. So, and I'm just using them because they're all a little bit different, but the 95 gallon, the increase of 11 cents on the total proposed rate of 21.66, the general math is that's about 0.5%. So looks like we're sharing at about 50-50, our total increase versus the 10% that we're doing when you do all the math. So it's 11 cents on 21.66 is what we're asking for.
Not sure.
You're making me look at this without my time.
Sorry. And again, if you want to follow up, I think that's fine. My question is not related to the percentage increase relative to households. It's really in totality, if your labor costs have gone up by a dollar amount, whatever that is, what percentage of that are you passing to the city of Meridian? I'm not really necessary. I mean, I don't necessarily look at it on a per container basis, or it's just a broader question. If your labor costs have gone up by $900,000 and what amount are you passing on to the city? And so let maybe we'll just follow up. If you could provide that at a later point, that's totally cool. I'm kind of, I think Republic's been a great partner. I just want to say that. I think we're all really appreciative of Republic, all that you do. I think all of the community projects I don't want to discount, though, I think some of the comments I'm hearing about, especially for those of us that are new, do we want to get up to speed on the contract and understand how, how the contract is structured and why this, to me, it's a little unusual to have a request falling outside of the contract. So I'm not a voting member on this commission, but I personally would be interested to understand the dynamics of the contract and what it contains and sort of have a broader discussion. But I personally would just suggest if there is an increase in labor costs driving something, I think we should understand what amount of that's being asked to be passed on to the city of Meridian and what has Republic done to absorb some of those costs themselves. It's kind of an extraordinary time, right? If we had a stock market crash and a huge correction and deflation, would the city of Meridian be coming to Republic saying, we think labor costs are going down, right? Would we want to do something extraordinary outside of the contract if the shoe is on the other foot? I understand it's probably the right thing to do to some extent, but I just want to understand the numbers and what amount of that's being passed on and what the contract covers and doesn't cover.
Okay, the chair would like to go ahead and question Joanna and Bill, just to make sure that I understand, can go ahead and give the commission direction on timing. If we were to continue this and then make decisions at the August meeting, does that work with the city's schedule for everything that they need to do?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I guess I don't want to put the city clerk on the spot. So it really depends on when is the rate going to be effective. And I know that's a conversation we've had. I mean, I know the preference of utility billing is October 1. And I'm sure Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the preference. To back that up for an approval date is about 3 weeks before that. So we need the city council to then approve it in early September, which means they need to hear it before that. And the council may want 1 or 2 opportunities to discuss those rates prior to the hearing, or at least one prior to a public hearing. So August 21st would be pretty tight if for this decision to be made to then go to the council. It'd have to go to the council probably the following Tuesday. I'm thinking, I assume the 21st is a Wednesday. I don't have my calendar in front of me. Assuming that's a Wednesday. So the following Tuesday is the 5th Tuesday. There's no council meeting. So it would be September 7th, which means the council would then have to give the go ahead to move forward to do a public hearing. The public hearing wouldn't be for 3 weeks. So the public hearing wouldn't happen until September 28th. And to then implement it by October 1 is a pretty tight timeline for utility billing. And Commissioner Adi, is my math and calendar counting sound correct to you? Okay, so it would be preferable if possible of this commission. I recognize with 9 of you, it's a big challenge. If you could have a special meeting probably within 2 weeks to make a decision on moving this forward, that would be helpful to move it a little bit quicker along to get it there. There's no council meeting next Tuesday. The next council meeting is August 10th. So if it could be on the 10th or the 17th for a conversation, because the standard process with the council is bring it forward, have the discussion, have the recommendation from SWAC, have basically a lot of the same questions the council may have and more before they notice it for hearing. So I don't know if that's a feasible for your commission and the number of folks you have, but August 21st would be fairly tight. And unfortunately, Ms. Glenn from Utility Billing is in here, but and we have had years, and Rochelle recall, we have had years where we had to push it past October 1. And we've done it in November or December, or, well, I think we either want to do November 1 or January, not December. But I know we've done it if we have to. So I'm not saying it's a drop dead if you can't do it in 2 weeks, but it would be a tight to make October 1 by August 21st.
And just to make sure, the keys to when there needs to be a public hearing, that the city council has to hold a public hearing are when there's new categories of fees and
If the
the
increase is
request-
more than 5%.
Okay,
So any new fees and any increases above 5%, but historically, the council has preferred having a hearing regardless of the level of increase of the fees. So even if there were less than 5%, the council has preferred that the public have an opportunity to weigh in.
I do know there's some commercial categories that do go up over 5%. While there's no categories.
Okay.
So thank you for that. And to kind of put a link to that, and our next meeting would be August 25th. So
Oh, 25th, I'm sorry, yes.
that tightens the schedule up a little bit more. So members of the commission, with that background information, valid point on education on the underlying documents and a time to go through all that. As background, the CPI information goes through June 30th and it gets rolled together. It's usually July 15th when that CPI number is put together. And kudos to staff to go ahead and work on that at that point to be able to bring these draft tables to us for this July meeting. But that's kind of where we're at now, as this is the first time this draft table comes together and people get a chance to look at it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to commissioners to comment on whether they would like to have a couple of weeks to work on this information and get information to you, background information on the contract and such, and then finish this discussion at a special meeting, say in 2 weeks, or any other comments you've got on the process.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible for those that don't have the background that we could have a workshop here at City Hall just to review all of that? And then if you want to hold an emergency meeting of the commission, if you want to speed it up for city council, if people have the time.
I'm going to turn that question over to city staff because you would be putting together the training session.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Spivak, would you be interested in something within a week to have a session? We could even do an online session with a discussion of the background. And then that would give you an additional week after that to.
Whatever
review
is
the rates.
reasonable, because it's asking a lot of the city to respond that quick, but for us to give a reasonable response, we need to give you a reasonable amount of time to provide that information. It may also be something that Republic may want to voluntarily provide the commission on information that's not required in the contract. You're right. They're good folks. I don't have any trouble with that. But as a representing the taxpayer, we need to have good business.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm curious on Commissioner Spivak's ask. Are you wanting if you don't have a quorum of the commission, which would be my preference, you can have a meeting online, that's fine. I don't know that all of you want to necessarily have to be a part of that. But if there's a few of you, and again, I know there's some newer commissioners on here that would maybe like a little bit, or some longer term commissioners that might need a refresher about some of these things, I can certainly make myself available. I know Joanna can make herself available. I'm happy to be on a Zoom Teams call to make that happen and participate in that conversation. So it can be done with a small number of folks on a online meeting and help answer some of those questions. If you're going to have a meeting that includes a quorum of this commission, then we're going to have to notice it. It's going to be like this. It's not going to be, and it's a little bit to put that together is going to be a little more challenging to do in a week.
I was assuming this would be a workshop, however you schedule it. I don't know what the city's regulations are as far as distributing to the commissioners copies of the contract, information like that, or should we gather here to take a look, or can it be done online with Zoom?
Copies of the contract can be distributed to all the commissioners. That's fine. Yeah, if that's a public record, that's not a problem.
But whatever works.
Mr. Chair, so my recollection and my understanding from our previous discussions on rates is that 90% of CPI is built into the contract as a
Correct.
rate adjustment. So whether we think the contract should have been written that way or not, that's the way it is. So
Correct.
to me, that's a non-controversial aspect of this. The extraordinary item, the one-time labor adjustment that Republic has requested seems the item that deserves a more careful consideration. I think it's appropriate to answer Councilwoman Strader's question before we make a recommendation around that and so forth. But I think the 90% CPI adjustment is a pretty straightforward contract provision that exists. I'd be interested in the revisiting process that Mr. Neri discussed previous months and so forth, but I think that's beyond what we're being asked to do right now.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and realistically, the answers that the questions that you are really being asked is, all that's being requested is the CPI adjustment, which is contractually allowed for Republic to ask as an automatic adjustment, I guess, for lack of a better term. Secondarily, do you want the new services that they're offering? Do you want those that they're offering? There are fees attached to those as well. Do you think those are valuable services that could be of use to our community? Third, again, is the new fee that they're talking about, this one-time fee that would require an MOU, reasonable to do and at a reasonable amount they've requested it. And again, I think Councilmember Strader has asked the right question about how much of that is being asked of the city versus how much is part of Republic's business. But that's really the questions. It's not, again, as Commissioner Larson said, it's not whether the CPI is a good metric. It doesn't matter. It's contractually bound. So we don't have a way to adjust that at this point in time. Future, potentially that would be a conversation, but right now that really isn't. So that's not really an issue. Understanding the contract, I absolutely would like all of you to make sure you feel comfortable in any way that you need to get more information. That's certainly our goal to help with that. But that's really the questions you're being asked. You know, so that's, if it helps you focus on what the ask is, it isn't quite as overwhelming as it might seem to some folks.
And just my final comment, as Councilwoman Strader said, it does feel like the right thing to do. My own experience in trying to recruit at my own agency, you know, what I'm seeing around in businesses in the community that are adjusting hours and so forth because of staffing issues, my own rent going up 18%. The labor issues are real, but I think it would be very appropriate to have the answers to what share is being passed on to the city and ultimately to the citizens before we take action.
Mr.
Chair, it would
Chairman.
be
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
helpful for me to get I'm sure I've had a copy of the contract before, but I don't do that for a living, so I could use a little help. And what would help me is if we could also put together kind of an executive overview of that contract for me that kind of defines the scope the contract is intended to cover and the outliers that need to come to our commission also. Just help me kind of know what I'm looking for when I read those. But yeah, what is the original intent of that contract and why do we have all these things that are outside the contract? I think we all know why. That would help me to have that executive overview. I don't know who would put that together.
Mr. Chairman, I think that'd be valuable for city council as well, new members.
I can, Mr. Chair, and I can send out a copy of the contract tomorrow so that everyone can have that. And then perhaps we can work with Bill on having an understanding of the terms that are in the contract. And we can go from there and you can decide if there's additional information that you require.
Yes, that would help. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. So Bob was just giving me that. We do have some rates that are going above 3.91%, and that's just because of the nature of rent and the franchise fee and things like that. But he was saying the overall request is not going to exceed, including the labor. We've given you the breakdown, but he's saying that the labor would not be in addition to the 3.91. So really what we're asking for is the basic contract, contracted adjustment. And the labor that we broke down and we showed you, that's one of the components that's included in there. So he's saying, and that might have just been totally my misinterpretation, because some of these rates do go above 5% and they would need to be publicly noticed. But the overall request is just the straightforward contract 3.91%.
Mr. Chair, Rochelle, so you're saying that an MOU is not needed?
Just one second. We think it's a good idea that we revisit this and come back in 1 week. So because we did have it broken out, but we just need to confer with staff where we finished on this and go back and look at the numbers and make sure that the request before you is 3.91%. And if we don't need a labor memo and that's just included, then that's where we are. So we'll get back with a final answer on that.
And I did not print out the longer sheets, so I don't have those in front of me. But just for my memory on this, what was the CPI number? Is the 3.91 the CPI number or the 90% of the CPI number?
Mr. Chairman, was 4.3%. And so the 90% is 3.91.
Okay. And so that works out well for the majority of these items because the CPI cannot be applied to some items such as disposal costs, I believe, and some other stuff. Then when that works back up, it's some percentage less than the 90% normally, but we have the labor bump, which is putting it up to the 3.8, 3.9 type numbers for most categories, maybe a little bit more on some of the commercial rates that go up to 5%. And of course, the answer we got on that was that regardless of where everything is versus 5%, council will probably want to go ahead and have a public hearing anyway. So that would not be an impact on our schedule. But I think the concept on this is the labor bump is what's bringing it back up into the 3.8, 3.9 range versus the 90% of the CPI, which is 3.91. So it's kind of an odd coincidence of numbers. And I guess now this is a sidelight for me personally. Your intentions in the future would then be that this labor bump would be rolled into the service cost and would continue after that, or this is a one-time only fee?
Mr. Chairman, this would be a one-time, this is a one-time request to bring us up to market labor. And then after this, we anticipate that being part of the base rate and not coming back with a labor exception in the future.
Right, so that number kind of gets absorbed into the service fee going forward, and then the CPI would adjust to that, so.
Right.
Okay. Going back to where we are in the commission on this. We've gone an hour and 10 minutes. We're scheduled to go from 4 to 5, but certainly we continue on if we think we're going to be able to finish business and be able to come to a vote. But I don't want to keep the commission if what we've got is a request for information that we would get within a week. So I need some kind of indication from the commission. Are you wanting to defer a vote on this for a couple of weeks and would be willing to be at have us meet in a special meeting in a couple of weeks and then have the information that's requested be supplied to you within a week? such as the contract and other documents. So members of the commission, would you comment on that concept of whether you would like to defer a decision, and if you would a meeting in 2 weeks be comfortable?
Mr. Chair, given that we had a special meeting last year for rates, it's definitely not outside the bounds of normal if we're having issue coming to decision this evening. I would make a motion that we have a special meeting on August 11th at 4 p.m. That will give the members of the commission enough time to review the requested documents for those that need them and give us time to vet the rate request further with city staff. And if need be, any questions given to Republic. The motion is to make sure that everyone is comfortable and the franchisee and the city are protected.
A motion has been made for a special meeting to be held on August 11th. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I would second that motion. I just would like to confirm with the clerk that that timing works for council.
So, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chairman, member of the commission, the 11th is a night of Parks Commission meetings, and they start at 5:30. 5:30. Since it's a special meeting, you don't have to have it at 4 o'clock. I recognize that may work for a lot of your work schedules. It is, if you can do it earlier, they generally like to get the room set up before the meeting a little bit. So is it possible to have a quorum of your commission at 3 o'clock on that date? So that way we make sure we complete this task before they need to set up for the Parks Commission afterwards.
And if I might, the alternate is we would be forced to meet in one of the commission meetings or one of the other committee meetings or committee rooms, right?
So we can check on that. We don't know positive for sure if that is available.
But anyway, so the question has been posed to us as commissioners, would we be able to meet at 3 o'clock on the 11th? Comments from the commissioners?
I can do 3 o'clock on the 11th, Mr. Chair.
I as well.
I can do that.
There is a session on the Meridian Fire Department Strategic Planning. I'm on that committee, but we could do a morning session or an afternoon. I'll make sure I do the morning. I'm available.
Mr. Chair, I can.
Mr. Chair, I'm available.
I believe I am.
Mr. Chair, I'm not necessary, but I will be out of town. I'll catch up on the meeting afterward.
Okay, so it looks like, so to fine tune the motion that's before us is that we would have a special session on August 11th at 3 p.m. Further comments?
Mr. Chair, I assume that we can do that virtual for those of us that maybe not be able to make it to Meridian?
Sir.
I've got a confirmation from city staff, so yes.
Thank you.
Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those that are voting in favor of having a special session for consideration of rates on August 11th at 3 p.m. signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. The motion passes. We'll go ahead and city staff, if you could go ahead and put that together for us. Are there further comments on this subject at this time? Maybe further identification of any information that would be useful? I guess city staff feels like they know what has been requested so far as the contract and, okay.
Mr. Chair. I was also going to request if the council could get an updated kind of call list of everyone on the new members for to meet each other and get emails and phone numbers. I don't know if that exists. He probably has one and sent it to me.
Way back when my hair wasn't so gray, 7 years ago, we did put together a notebook for the original commissioners. And I do feel like it would be good to hand this out. There is a section, and I guess what I need to do is understand from staff to the extent we can give out contact information, but above and beyond that, a copy of the code, the ordinance that went ahead and put us into effect, essentially a mission statement, and information about the annual rate adjustment and such. I believe there is no issue with us putting together a new version of this, and I am kind of looking around and thinking I'm probably the only one that has one of these. So effectively, this is a new handout for the commission, but yes, I guess that'll kind of be something I'll work with city staff to go ahead and finalize, and hopefully we can hand that out at sometime in August.
I do have a modern copy of that as well, and we can perhaps send it out digitally.
Mr. Chair, Joanna, I would prefer digital. More accessible for me.
Very good. So I guess I'll work with city staff to go ahead and finalize that. But a digital version of this will be made available sometime within the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Mr. Chairman, are you thinking on the August 11th meeting, we're going to have a workshop and rate discussion, or did you want a contract workshop like in the next week? No, everything all at once. Okay, so nothing in the next week.
I do believe, well, let's see. What this allows us to do is to have a background package put together with the agenda. Of course, the agenda is abbreviated, and the only thing that'll be on it is the rate structure. But within the package, a copy of the contract, the franchise agreement, and a white paper discussion about the highlights of that could be put out, and that would meet with our public information requirements, our open meeting requirements. Now, then I guess the opportunity exists for up to 4 of us, since there are 9 members on the commission, to have a working session to go over this, the material that's presented. That we could work out so that if there's some people that feel like they need some more discussion of it, I guess those that would like to be involved in that, if they would give their name to me, then I will go ahead and facilitate that conversation about which 4 would be able to get in there. I'm certainly going to defer to the newer members.
Mr. Chairman, if, when Joanna has a chance to send the PDF of the contract, you can give us your phone number, we can call and then you can set us up.
Get your pens ready. 208, of course, 608-8533. Additional comments on the subject before us, the rate increase? So with that, then I guess the subject is continued on to the special meeting, and we will pick this up in a couple of weeks. That completes all of the business that was on our agenda. The next meeting, next special meeting would be on August 11th at 3 p.m. The next regular meeting will be August 25th at 4 p.m. And I know we'll also, the August 25th meeting, we'll go ahead and pick up the the Community Recycling Fund project subject. So if there are additional subjects that you have an interest in, as always, notify me or Joanna, and we'll go ahead and get those on. And of course, we'll be meeting our new coordinator with the city, who will have been on their second or third day when we have our regular meeting. Are there additional items that need to be brought before the commission at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I always like to end the meeting on a positive note. Last week, it was about a week and a half ago now, my neighbor who lives behind me, our houses, just faces this way, I face that way. We have an alley between us over in Heritage Commons. He comes knocking on the door and he said, "Randy, did you see what happened out behind the house?" And I said, "No, Mark, what is?" He's a renter. And I said, "Show me." And a strip of grass about this wide tire was ripped out and laid up on the concrete alley. And we looked at it, and there was a second one that was about 12 feet apart. I said, "That was a truck. It wasn't a pickup truck. That was a big truck." He said, "My wife said it was blue." And I go, "Uh-oh." So I called Rochelle and immediately got a response. I think I left a message. She called right back. And also with one of the supervisors. And they said, yes, the driver stopped and called in his own mistake. He had cut the corner too sharp and cut across the yard. The yard was soft from having just been sprinkled. And it just ripped just a row of sod right out. We later found out that it also broke sprinkler system, one line anyway. So I think an insurance company has been out and looked, but they said it might be a while to get it fixed. So if we don't hear back in a week or so, Mark and I are just going to fix it because he's got to turn his sprinklers on. He can't now. It makes a geyser. But the driver did a good job of reporting himself immediately.
Members of the commission, additional comments? Very good. Then I'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned, and we will see each other in 2 weeks.
Have a great week.